Hello and welcome to Camp Xbox. It's that time of year again, and it's time to gather around the campfire and talk about some horror games. One of the most prominent horror franchises of the past 20 years is the Saw franchise. With 10 film entries as of recording and plenty of other media, love it or hate it, these torture horror flicks happen to have a rabid fan base and enough clout to keep people coming back. Well, in 2009, Saw made its debut in the world of gaming, and I played through it recently. So let me give you some history and a review. All footage was captured off of an Xbox 360, and I'd like to thank my YouTube channel members for their support. Let's go ahead and hop into this one.
Hello, Detective Tapp. I want to play a game. Your obsession with catching me has robbed you.
By 2008, the Saw franchise had reached 4 movies, with the 5th one scheduled for release later in the year. Though not critically praised, it had been a successful franchise, with each entry making more than its budget with every release. At this point, it had become more than just a film franchise, going to comics, a roller coaster, and in 2008, a video game. That's where developer Brash Entertainment enters the story, a game developer and publisher that was releasing movie-based games, which were not well received. In 2008, a huge announcement was made promoting a Saw game. In an interview with Bloody Disgusting, the interviewers talked about a plot that would be parallel to the first Saw, and that multiple cast members would return along with the composer. However, none of this would happen except for one important cast member returning. As the year went on, Brash did not talk about this game, as you can tell from most media sites. The company had a horrible year financially, releasing games like Jumper, Alvin and the Chipmunks, and Space Chimps, all of which were critical and financial failures. Though the developer behind Saw, Zombie Studios, who were well experienced in gaming, were still working hard on developing it. Brash shut down at the end of 2008 and put the project in limbo with no release in sight. After a few months of silence, Konami would come in to pick up the pieces, becoming the publisher and keeping Zombie Studios on as developer, though it would see some things evolve with development, such as the plot taking place between the first and second movie. Not only that, but none of the cast would return except for Tobin Bell as Jigsaw. The game would star Danny Glover's character from the original movie, but his voice and likeness would not be given. Also, the gameplay switched over to play more like Silent Hill, with Konami considering it a complementary series alongside that franchise. This game quickly came out later in 2009, just in time for the release of Saw 6. It released on October 6, 2009 for the Xbox 360 and PS3. It would shortly release in Australia and Europe as well on PC before the end of the year. I was there in 2009 and I picked this one up at the end of the year. And let me admit, I am a huge Saw fan, so there is some automatic bias going in with this game. I remember watching Saw when it was new, and I've been hooked to the series since. Not that I think they are amazing movies, they're cheap and cheesy, but it's like watching a horror soap opera, which there is so much fun in that. The way the plots all fit in like puzzle pieces, it's movies that I can keep watching. I've played this game twice before, and I've gotten every achievement in it, and I recently was going back through the movies, so I thought, why not give this game another shot? So I played it again recently, and let me tell you how my experience went, breaking it down, starting with the plot.
Look, we have to play by his rules. I saw him. I saw him.
Who is he? What did he look like?
That's all you care about? I just nearly died. We're all here because of you, detective. Oh, hell with this.
Opening much like the movies, we start the game with Detective David Tapp in a trap. Though once he escapes, this is not the end of Jigsaw's plans for him. Serial killer Jigsaw plans to prove a point to him that he is wasting his life obsessing over who the Jigsaw killer is. If you've never seen the movies, Jigsaw puts people in elaborate traps to test their will to live in order to prove life is worth living. Detective Tapp, played by Danny Glover in the movies, came face to face with him, but due to recklessness, got his partner killed. In this game that takes place after the first Saw, we see him in Whitehurst Asylum, which has been built into an elaborate, multi-tiered jigsaw trap where David Tapp must save the people who he affected in the past with his obsession. Step 1 of this assessment is that watching the movies helps. I believe you could get through this game without knowing the background, but it certainly makes more sense with an understanding of the timeline. As a fan, I like the authenticity, but if you've never seen the movies, I could see this not being being the best entry point since characters pop up from not just the first movie here, though it does at least have a consistent story and setup to make it easy to follow. The game consists of multiple chapters where you solve puzzles to save one person in a trap, and once you're done with that, you move on to the next person. To make this a long game though, they make this the most elaborate setup ever done, even including all of the movies. There are so many moving parts to all of these traps, and on top of all this, there are 100 plus people doing their own traps in this asylum. It honestly feels too elaborate and silly considering the amount of people Jigsaw would have to kidnap to make this giant scheme work. Putting that aside though, the pacing and editing style of the cutscenes all fit the mood of the movies. It's fast and in your face, and there's something I like about that authenticity. Though the layout of the plot is fairly linear, I still found myself engaged when I moved from one story point to the next. The writing though isn't perfect. It fits well with the dread of the situation, but some of the lines are weak. It honestly fits the movies quite well with cheesy writing, but maintains a fun, violent tone that anyone who likes horror can get into. I do have two gripes with the story though. One is minor, and that's the collectible notes. There are a ton of additional materials that you can pick up and read along the way. I usually enjoy these in games to get some background info, but here it's weak. They try to connect the asylum you're in to MK Ultra, but it's not explained well, and it has no interaction with the actual game. Same with a few notes about the design of the asylum. It just never goes anywhere interesting. My other gripe is the ending. You get two endings, and the bad ending is just a non-ending that's not satisfying in any way. And then the other ending has a weak twist. The movies hinge on that solid twist ending with Zepp's theme playing in the background. You get none of that here. Instead, you get a weak reveal that once again feels like a non-ending. It all comes to a poor conclusion, which is a bad mark for a game that has so far held the integrity of the films. Here it feels like they fumble it on the most important part of the movies. Yet most importantly, does it fumble the gameplay? Taking the ideas of Saw and putting it into a game feels quite restrictive. Since you are stuck in a series of traps, you have no free range, and you're set upon a linear path. Zombie Studios tries to design a game with those tenets, and they do a good job by turning it into a horror puzzle game, which I quite enjoy. Yet other things enter the gameplay though that bring it down overall. You play as David Tapp from a third-person perspective, and once you escape the first trap, you move around the asylum, finding keys and codes to unlock doors and move on to the people you save in each section. These sections are highly linear, and although the paths do weave around when you look for objects, they are never confusing or challenging to navigate. This design does feel a bit repetitive over the 6-hour runtime, and I wouldn't say it's constantly engaging, yet it's not dull. Luckily, they do a good job of changing where you go, and they change the puzzles and layouts of the traps to make it entertaining enough to keep on going. What helps the pacing is that the puzzles are sprinkled all over. Puzzles where you need to look in a specific direction to create the code for a door, or mix up pipes to stop a gas leakage in a room. The game mixes all of this to keep the linear maps engaging, and I love this portion. In the middle of all this though, you will have people coming out to kill you, and that's when combat comes in, which is easily the worst part of this game. The combat is broken, and I'm surprised it even made it into the final game. You get a ton of breakable objects to use, but none of them feel good, and most enemies have animations that are way faster. It's clunky, and the enemies can back you into a corner and stun lock you with animations easily. The best method for fighting overall is just using your fists so you can stun lock them first, pressing the same button over and over, making weapons useless and making combat uninteresting. And you do a surprising amount of combat in this game. It's a bit sad because I feel overall, combat is what drags the experience down. After all, it manages to stay fun in every other facet. Even with the constant search for new key items, I think it maintains that Saw horror feeling and mood, and when you reach the minigames, it's fun. You have a bunch of different puzzles for doing little things like fixing electrical boxes or lock-picking doors. You do them quite a bit, but I'm a sucker for puzzles like this. The same applies to the traps, which feature their own unique puzzle setups. Although some are gimmicky, such as the one where you have to solve a sliding puzzle or play a matching game, it's still good fun. I do find that it's not groundbreaking or riveting by any means though. It's fun, yet the linearity of the design isn't engaging enough till the very end. Mix this with some rough insta-kill sections where you can hit tripwires that will kill you instantly, forcing you to look down constantly rather than looking at the surroundings you're in. And once you die, you're forced back to checkpoints that aren't well paced. This, along with the combat, gives this game a general annoyance that prevents it from being a great horror game. Although I felt that sticking with the puzzle design was enough to keep me playing for a third time in my life, as stated previously, my enjoyment of the series helps this. I believe these general annoyances won't be as easy for someone who has no prior experience with the series. Visually, Saw is weak, leaning towards the cheap side, which can be fine, yet the one point you can't cheap out on in a Saw game is the gore, and the gore here is bland. Usually deaths are just a blob of red, no detail or anything, just extremely plain. Someone late in the game has two blades cut right into him and he should be chopped in half, yet he just falls down, and at multiple points the disgusting machinery only gives a mess of red and it loses all detail. This is easily the most disappointing part here because that's what's fun in the movies and you get none of that here. And continuing that, the overall experience is cheap. From the character models that move in janky motions to the design of the asylum, which just feels like reused assets. It gives this game a clunky feel that never does anything imaginative, going for the bare minimum and missing out on what could have been cool environments. The best parts of this are the TV scattered everywhere and getting to see so much of Billy the Puppet, which they do get that right. They also match the annoying editing style of the movies with flashing lights and quick cuts, and this is a joy to see, yet pair it with poor character animations and it can come off a bit goofy. It's the layout of the asylum that doesn't help, where sometimes it shines in places like the library or the cafeteria, and then other times it's just dark, bland hallways with no variety, cutting some fun out of the exploration. I know the budget couldn't have been that high on this one, yet I have seen budget titles of the era do a much better job of bringing their world to life. Seriously, just a little bit of good gore could have gone a long way here, yet overall the visuals come off as lazy.
The solution to this puzzle relies on your point of view.
One thing that does not come off as lazy is the music. Though none of Charlie Closer's score comes back, including the essential Zeps theme, I do think the new composer here is able to evoke the feelings of the movies. It's mostly low and quiet, but it all has a haunting edge, playing harsh music in the background, emphasizing the horror of the game, with nice strings and piano work that emphasize the importance of scenes, with the final twist theme feeling close to Zeps' theme, though that is sorely missed. I wonder why they were unable to use that music in a Saw game, but what is done here is great. Sound design too is well done. The editing style of the music with screams and loud noises, emphasizing the fast nature of the editing, comes into play. Small noises like glass crashing or pigs squealing sneak into the background and capture the world well. It's all solid except for the voice work. For the most part, your main character gives some awful line readings and the rest of the cast doesn't help. It doesn't help that many of the lines are hollow and don't offer much for emotion. Yet Tobin Bell as Jigsaw, the most prominent voice in the game, is by far the best part. He matches the creepy deep tone of the movies and sells Jigsaw so well. It's the same great performance you get from him in the movies here in a game, and that's all you can ask for. The only voice that it really needed to sell was his, and they got it right, making up for a lot of poor performances you run into in the game. It's time to talk about the achievements. As a fun aside, this has no bearing on the final assessment. As anyone who has played this game before might know, the achievements in this game are extremely easy. If you need a quick 100%, Saw has got you covered. Most of the big gamerscore achievements ask you to complete the story. There's no difficulty option you have to choose, you just have to play the game and you're set. The game has 2 endings, each of which have different achievements tied to them, but what's nice is you don't have to beat it twice. You can just reload your save and watch the other ending. satisfying. The main thing you have to look out for though, you need to get 1 kill with each weapon, which means you have to use the poorly implemented weapons at least once. It's not a tough thing to do, it's just not fun. Other than that, you have to unlock doors 20 times, and you can do that in 1 playthrough. And easy enough, you'll have a 100% in 1 playthrough, and if you miss something, you can just reload a chapter. As long as you keep an eye out on every weapon you come across, you shouldn't even have to do that. I have 100%ed this game before, and on my new account where I played this, I did miss a few weapons, yet this game has a chapter select, so it'll be easy to go back and grab those achievements. So if you need some easy gamer score and a halfway decent game, this isn't a bad choice. Saw is full of flaws, with some cheap graphics, poor voice acting, and terrible combat. Though at its core, I do find some fun with it. I enjoy the puzzle design and the layout of the asylum. Tobin Bell brings something special to the game, and though the twist isn't solid, the plot does convey the series well in game form. I will firmly say that I am coming at this game at a different angle and tried to leave some bias at the door, but as someone who loves the movies, it's hard for me to look at it quite objectively. Though I will not hype this game up, it's not a great game. Far from it, and anyone not familiar with the series will probably not get a kick out of this. So I have to say, it's not a good game, yet fun in ways for me and anyone who might like the movies. I have now reviewed 28 Xbox 360 games so far on Camp Xbox, and ranking them all up, this one goes in at number 25. I believe it's better than Kane and Lynch, where that one becomes a bore in its second half. This one does stay interesting the whole time, but Enchanted Arms goes above this because I found that game to be much more imaginative and far more polished. Saw came out to mixed reviews according to Metacritic with a 59. IGN gave it a 7.5, saying it was far too repetitive, but found it was still a good horror genre entry. Game Informer gave it a 6, saying that it would work for fans, but felt the puzzles were brainless and the combat was clueless. Official Xbox Magazine in an online review would give it a 4.5, saying that it was tense, but the puzzles were bad and the combat was weak, and they also wanted more of the iconic Saw music. Saw went on to be a very controversial release at the time because it released at a time when video game violence was still drawing a lot of criticism. Though it seems that it hardly had any release issues, publications were still calling it depraved and inhumane. Though I don't think this would affect the core audience of this game. According to VG Charts, the PS3 version would sell 360,000 copies and the Xbox version would sell 280,000 copies. Not extraordinary numbers by any means, but enough for Konami to quickly get a sequel underway because, like the yearly movie franchise, this would get a sequel the following year, which we will get into the story of that one when we cover that in that game's review. Nowadays, this game has a very poor reputation. I know many out there who do not remember this game fondly. Looking at Backlogged, it holds a 2.5 out of 5 average with over 1,000 plays. Usually the highest you will see in the reviews is a 3, and that's probably from someone who's a fan of Saw. Otherwise, you will see many who do not enjoy this one at all, which I understand. Yet one thing we can all agree on is that every achievement or trophy was extremely easy. And let me know if you've ever played this one in the comments and how you felt about it. I'd love to hear from you. Be sure to leave a like as it really helps me out in the algorithm, subscribe for more retro Xbox content, and check out my second channel, Camp Extras, for more retro gaming content. And I want to give a huge shout out to my YouTube channel members. Thank you so much for your support. You really help out the channel, and I'll see you here next time at Camp Xbox.